Hi there, welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth today. I'm Anah Parreli, and today we're going to be talking about the colour of aqua. I invite you to make your own comments about your experiences of using colour or healing energy, and just to add to any information that I may give to people, because while I have information, it doesn't mean that I know everything about every single thing. I give you the information that I personally have experienced or that I'm aware of, or that I may have received information from other people. And obviously, the more we discuss and talk together about these things, the greater the pool of information for all of us to share or to tap into. And of course, no pun intended, because as you can see here, we've got an image which is a pool of water. When we talk about aqua as a colour, we're actually talking about the hue or the shade. This is for the purposes of colour healing, as I know. We're talking about a shade of blue and green together that's quite light. It's got the hues of the ocean, depending on the day, of course, and it's a colour that's very much associated with the crystal aquamarine. Of course, I can't get a good picture to put on here to do the colour or the shade justice, so to some extent a person's got to use their imagination when they're visualising colour. But either way, aquamarine is this blend of the blues and the greens, and because it also carries shades of white, it ends up being a more pale colour. And so yes, I think it's fair to say that it's a blend of primary colours. So when we talk about colours, and of course the primary colours, which if you've watched the introductory videos on this channel, you'll see that the primary rays all fit in with the Sanskrit. And the best way to understand the power of any colour, whether it be emotional or physical, is actually to look at the chakras. Now, we can see here that on this image, you've got, from the top going down, you've got the blue colour, which is indigo, and then you've got the turquoisey type colour followed by the lime green. We'll talk about that at some point in the future, not too distant future. And then of course we've got the emerald. Now when we're looking at the colour aqua, which is associated with water, of course, it's a blend of these colours from the indigo through to the emerald green. And so what this means is that aqua in itself is going to carry properties of all of these colours, but primarily for aqua, it is actually to do with the throat chakra and the heart chakra, which is the lighter blue with the darker green, if that makes sense. Take a look at the image, just try and work it out. Pause the video if you need to. The relevance, anyway, of the blue with the green is that we're talking about, literally talking with the colour aqua, about a shade or a colour that carries the properties of communication, particularly verbal communication, and being able to speak honestly, to speak of feelings, emotions, needs, and to do it in kind ways or respectful ways. And sometimes this is, of course, is going to be very important when we're trying to build relationships with people, especially if they've done something that we don't like. It's very common, let's say, in relationships, certainly when we're younger, for people when they're unhappy to turn around and state aggressively if they're upset, you did this, you did that. You will probably have memories of yourself speaking like that, whether it's to your children, your partner, or your mother, or whatever. You need to do X and Y because this upsets me. That's all examples of somebody that hasn't harnessed the power of their throat chakra. Now, when we harness the powers of communication, we're able to turn around and say, can I speak to you for a moment? Pay attention to the timing. And we're able to focus on the power of this to own our emotions and speak our truth. I was very hurt. I was extremely hurt when you did X or Y, and I'm wondering how we can resolve this, And then there is the respect for the other person that comes through. So communication is a pivotal part of how we live our lives. I obviously have done videos on this as well in the mainstream helping health channels. I should have said playlist. I mean the playlist, because I've done the info education type videos. I haven't gone too far into communication specifically per se with strategy, but this all sits in the throat chakra with the colour aqua. And just as an extra tidbit here, when we work with people, if we're talking about energy workers and psychics and mediums, they have to be able to at least purify their aura enough to be a pure channel of the light beings or spirit, or they have to be able to see and interpret messages that they're given and be able to deliver them in loving ways. I just decided I think I will make a reference to the lime green here, just for a moment, without going too far into it. The lime green here is an often overlooked chakra, and personally I feel, based on my experience of working with people, either in the capacity as a psychic medium or in the mental health professions, it's actually associated, and of course we get more PTS these days and anxiety, depressive disorders. So what I want to make reference to is, in my observations, this is where panic disorders sit. When people have that stress attack, they can feel it. So as far as the image goes, it's probably at the top of your cleavage and just below your throat. So those people that have experienced a panic attack, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There is that pain in the chest that they get there. And I believe, this is just the links that I have made, that those people that have had a lot of trauma, maybe suffering from PTSD, that it actually sits there, because it's not just about PTSD and being in war zones as well. The other times that I've seen it is when people are really struggling with grief and loss. There's been a loved one that has passed over, and they may have passed over suddenly and unexpectedly, and they're struggling to come to terms with the loss. This is when I have found that lime green coloured chakra is most active, shall we say, causing imbalance in the person's life. So this is why the colour aquamarine or aqua is actually really beneficial to those people where there is this emotional burden, if you like. Aboriginal folk, because I've worked in the communities with Aboriginal people, my understanding is they don't acknowledge mental illness per se. They believe that this suffering is a case of their spirit has been broken. And if you think about this, to me it actually resonates as a description, because that is the pain that's in the chest that they're talking about. And that's why I make the links with PTSD as well, because there's such a sense of loss. It is basically, I don't think words can do justice. I'll just say it's combined with a really deep sense of loss, and I think even a universal betrayal, feeling let down, not just by people, but by the universe as well. It makes me think of those words, like, my God, why have you abandoned me? Which of course he hasn't, or she hasn't, if you believe in a female God. The point is that the person is just so consumed by their emotions, and they feel abandoned, they feel traumatized. Now, what people can do in this instance is they can actually do like this lady with the paper bag, and on those inward breaths, on the inhales, I should stop saying inward breaths, but on the inhale, they actually inhale the colour of aquamarine and they bring it down into their entire being, as with any other exercise. It's a really good activity actually for people that have got panic disorders, because in my experience of working with these people in clinical facilities, we encourage them to do the breathing exercises as a method of self-soothing and calming themselves when they're in this basically paralysed. People can become paralysed when they're in panic. So we encourage them to practice the breathing. Well, what you could do if you're working with these people is encourage them to do the breathing exercises, but to visualise that they're breathing in the colour aqua at the same time. And of course, when we think of the colour aqua, we think of water, because of course aqua is how the Italians referred to water. It's the Italian name for water anyway. So aqua is a really good description of the colour. It is watery. And of course, when we talk about water, we're talking about emotions. We're talking about the feminine aspects of humanity, if we get into the feng shui symbol. and of course Pythagoras and his laws of polarity, where you have male, female, masculine, feminine, and all of that kind of thing. So the healing benefits that are associated with the colour aqua is that they bring patience, or it brings a sense of patience, faith, acceptance. If you've been a little bit fiery, it soothes, it cools, and it calms. It dissolves fears and negative and destructive emotions, and it increases your confidence and belief in yourself. So people that are struggling with these kind of emotions, they would certainly benefit from basking in the colour of aquamarine if they've got aquamarine lights. But worst case scenario, honestly, I sort of feel that we all know from an emotional perspective that when we're feeling distressed or overwhelmed emotionally, there is something very soothing about going to the ocean on a calm day because of these ocean links or a large body of water. It's not always about the ocean, I must say, because based on my own experiences of life, I grew up in an area where it was coastal and it was always beautiful weather, and you could always rely on going to the beach and generally being able to see dolphins and other marine fauna, animals, for want of a better word. And at one point in my life, I remember it was the first time I'd lived inland, and I didn't think that my soul would be able to cope. I know that sounds extreme, but when you've lived coastal for the entirety of your life, because Australia is such a vast country, to move inland, you can actually be hours away from the coast, and it can be quite barren or inland. Okay, we've got different, obviously, climate types. And what I found was that although I couldn't get to the ocean where I was living, I could actually get to large lakes and flowing rivers. And because I was able to be in those kind of watery environments, that had the same impact upon me. It was very calming, very soothing, very peaceful. And these are the benefits that the colour aqua brings to a person as well. So I did mention before about the associations between the colour aqua and marine life. I'll be more specific with this one. There is messages that are conveyed through the use of the colour aqua, or if people are drawn to it. And in the simplest of scenarios, it is a reminder to focus on the breathing. Now, if you think about it, dolphins and whales, they can go to great depths, right? So this is symbolic as well. They can go down to the depths, but they can still survive by keeping this healthy focus on their breath. Okay, they've got to be able to sustain through the use of their breath, and then to be able to obviously retain life by coming back to the surface, taking in more air, to be able to cope with going down to the depths again. So if a person is struggling in their life and living really difficult scenarios or whatever, then they are encouraged to focus on their breath to retain peace. Now, I would make it a bit, or take it a little bit further and say, yes, focus on your breath, the sacred breathing. And when you're doing those activities, you could always visualize, as I said before, when you're managing PTSD symptoms and such, that you use the colour aquamarine as a visual exercise when you're doing your breathing exercises. Just as an extra tidbit here, if people are actually feeling drawn towards the whales as an animal medicine or message, they can actually be a subconscious sign that a person is ready to relocate, either through their house or through towns to a different town. And this is because the whale is a migratory animal, and so it's symbolic of migration. I've put this video in here, and you could replay this video a couple of times just to really feel the soothing of the mind and the calming of the nerves that is associated with aqua, because aqua is basically recommended for people when they need to feel this internal or inner stillness. And when we watch these videos, it's better if you can actually do it by the ocean. I have such a love for dolphins because I have been so privileged in my life to live on the coast and watch them frolicking and that kind of thing. And it restores the soul. Now, what I want to mention here too is there is another association for the colour aqua, And of course, this takes us into the metaphysical areas, and it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to mention it anyway. It's a reminder that we are all connected, and that includes the marine species. And dolphins and whales are right up there as considered to be, I guess the best description would be ocean guides or whatever, holders of wisdom, holders of knowledge or whatever. And so, regardless of what we believe about that, there is a reminder that we can communicate with animals through the power of telepathy, which actually I've tested in Bali. I thought, I'm going to put this to the test. I tried it out with elephants and monkeys and that kind of thing. Quite amazing. That's another story for another day. But at least with the dolphins and the whales, you can send love to them through the use of the aqua colour. And look, the really interesting factor is, and I do recommend test it for yourself because I did when I learned about it. I was An example of how you would do it is, I was sitting on the coast, I was having a rough day, and I was at the ocean, obviously to restore my soul. And when I was looking out far on the horizon, I could see a couple of dolphin fins, and I wasn't sure if they were dolphins or sharks because obviously we have a lot of sharks in Australia as well. And where I'm going with this is, I suddenly realised it was actually two dolphins, but they were way, way away, way on the distance. And so through my heart, I decided to test this, and I sort of put that out there, come closer, come closer. I want to be able to see them closer. So, I was sending love and please come closer. Well, what ended up happening was I ended up with a pod of them all frolicking not far from the coastline where I was sitting, and I was able to sit with them, if you like. I know some people might think it's a bit fanciful, but it certainly was a very beautiful experience, and it's one that's up there in my memory bank. And I was able to sit with them, I think probably for a good hour and a half, with them playing in front of me. And the only reason it stopped was because it was time for me to go home. So just a reminder, the message here is that through the use of the colour aqua, it is believed by some people, I'll put my hand up, yes, me too, that we can communicate with animals and make a connection to animals through using the aqua colour. Now, if you are rational enough, I've talked a lot, so I'll try and be quick on this slide. If you are rational enough to do this activity when you start to get the onset of a panic attack and you recognise that it's happening, or you start to feel the symptoms of your PTSD, you can do this activity by focusing on the breath and drawing the colour aqua into your aura. Alternatively, even if you're not having a panic attack, but you maybe have these as diagnosis, or you recognize the symptoms within yourself, you can actually draw on the healing qualities of aqua at any given time. And, as part of restoring your nervous system, shall we say. And you would do this affirmation. Now, just a reminder, you don't have to do this exact affirmation. This is just an example. We always, when it comes to affirmations, we create ones that resonate with our own sense of being, because we have to be comfortable with what it is that we're doing. But the key is we put the focus and the emphasis on the positive, we follow with gratitude, and we always invoke the highest powers before we start the actual breathing activity. So there we go. That's a healing activity for you. I'm going to leave you now with this because otherwise the video gets too long, and instead I'm going to say, look, once again, you are invited to put up your own knowledge, experiences and thoughts about any of the content that I upload. If you've got questions, feel free to watch the yarning video on Sunday. I will definitely respond to any questions. I would prefer to respond in voice to people. So if you were to write a question underneath this video, just keep an eye out for the Sunday video when I load it, and I will respond to those questions during the upload or when I record it. In the meantime, I will say love you, leave you, have a wonderful day, be blessed, take care, have a wonderful week. See you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.